I'm gonna come.
We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.
Morning, Starbucks. Nobody here.
Seconds remaining.
Give me back my gun.
Oh man, I forgot how much I love that theme song. Hello everyone, this is Rolo, the Puerto Rican pistolero, coming to you live from beautiful Miami, Florida. I'm gonna smack the applause again. I did not think that I would be doing this again for an extremely long time, but I have just been, it's been blowing up inside of me. You guys know that I've been doing nothing but gaming streams for like the last 2 months since I had the last stream on, following the first assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. I had to come back for that. I have not been back since. I feel like I've not had the discipline to be able to do a rant without being, really just going off the rails. But, after a few weeks, I have, I'm mad as heck. I can't take it anymore. I don't know if this is going to be a common occurrence. This is on a Tuesday night. It's totally random. I did not plan on doing this until this morning. Carla, the mod extraordinaire, can tell you that this is the case. She's been hearing the rants for weeks. She's been ranting too. It's crazy the stuff that has been uncovered over the last few months, especially the last few weeks. And it is just simply too much to be able to sit on top of. I will go through a little bit about what I've been up to that has nothing to do with anything that I'm going to discuss this evening, just as a little bit of housekeeping. And then after that, we will get to brass tacks. Hopefully more people will show up, but I'm pretty happy with this for an impromptu stream. I had to bring it back on the main channel, not the Rolo's Rants channel, just because I wanted to make sure that the most people possible could see it. And I know that a lot of people have been pretty upset that I haven't done a rant in a long time. You guys know what's gone on in my life over the last year. I just, I've been on an epic journey within myself, and becoming born again as a Christian, and really living a very peaceful life. But that doesn't mean that I have not been keeping up with everything that's been going on. If anything, I've been doing rants with small audiences, in person, live, or on the phone, talking to different people. Like I said, Carla would be able to tell you that. The old man would be able to tell you that. Commander N would be able to tell you that. They hear me go crazy all the time. The unfiltered editions, but I just have not felt in my heart that this is where I wanted to go back into, because I know how heated up I can get. I know how angry this can make me. So I'm going to try to do something today that has never been done in a Rolo's Rants, and that is somehow give some of the greatest rants of my life while also not dropping any F-bombs. I will say frack, just like they do on Battlestar Galactica, but I will try somehow to not curse while I do this, just because I'm trying to do a little bit better here. I'm trying to show a little bit more discipline, but I'm still here to bring the heat and talk about it. We've got Wayfair in the chat. We've got Comic Misconceptions bringing up the other half of the modding crew here tonight. Cerberus, Carla as usual, A2, how's it going? JM the Elite Fan, and I'm sure that there's a few others watching. We're live on Rumble as well, so hello to the Rumble chat. It's crazy because the last time that I did a rant, I did it on Rumble as well, but unfortunately, Rumble, I've neglected you, and I apologize, because the last Rolo's Rant on Rumble put up numbers that were unheard of for Rolo's Rants, and we had over 810 views on Rumble. So we will, we got to give Rumble some love. We're also live on X if you prefer that. So they can't stop the signal. We're all over the place tonight. If it's not the usual quality, that's why, because we're pumping it out everywhere. So it's more about the message and not necessarily about the resolution. So as long as you guys can hear it, that is fantastic. So we have a lot of things to talk about this evening. I don't know if the weekly rants are going to be a thing. Maybe leading up to the election, we can do that. I don't know if Tuesdays will be the right day. I'm so out of whack with everything that's going on. I forgot it was Tuesday. I just don't know anymore what day of the week is which. It happens when you work from home. It happens when you're ranting all the time and doing a bunch of different things every day. And that's what I've been up to. So, if you're used to this channel, this show is usually on Sundays at 7 p.m. I don't know if it'll ever go back to Sundays at this point. It will probably be a midweek thing. So either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Wednesdays may be better, but then I'm streaming 3 days in a row. I don't know. We'll see how that works. And I've got, some things in the Mac 1164 is like frag. I'm trying to be a good Christian man here, Mac 1164. I'm trying to hold myself together. So what really, I think there's a lot of things that have triggered me lately. I think you can imagine everything unless you've been under a rock. And like I've even said myself, I've been talking about a lot of different things throughout the years. I started on YouTube as a Second Amendment advocate, and I'm still a Second Amendment advocate. As you can see, I've got my 2A badge here. I got the Mark 18 in the back. There's a lot of other stuff that you can't see all over the place in this room. And the Second Amendment has become near and dear to my heart. Using the First Amendment to protect the Second is something that I've always believed in. And these are the two most important amendments to us, especially right now in the day and age that we live in. And they're the ones that everybody, the powers that be, want to suppress the most. That is obvious. As we see the spread of authoritarianism throughout the globe, it becomes more and more important to be able to let your voice be heard and to be able to defend yourself and have the insurance policy against the powers that be. So this is why we have the First and Second Amendment. I'm not the only one that has talked about this. We've seen so many voices elevated, especially in the last few months, and it really seems like there is a movement. There is a movement against the powers that be, the globalists, the authoritarians, whatever you want to call them, the deep state, the uniparty, in collusion with a lot of the evils in the world that are affecting us on a different level. If there are times when you can't figure out why it seems that the enemies of freedom are not logical, it is because we are also in a spiritual war for the hearts and minds of the people throughout the world. And there are evil forces at work that we cannot see that are influencing a lot of what we're seeing here. I won't pontificate too much about that today, but it is an important factor to always be aware of, that the enemy is always present and influencing a lot of the evil that we're seeing in this world. So I will end the show. I will actually start the show with a Bible verse, and we will end it with a Bible verse. But I think this is one that works really well. And I'm not going to get too, I'm not going to evangelize you guys too much here, but this one always works. It is 1 Corinthians 15, 30 and 33, and it is bad company ruins good morals. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals or good character. And I think that is more obvious than ever as people are surrounded by negativity, by a lot of negative forces. They are corrupted. And we've seen so many people become corrupted by the systems that we see. This is why we see so many promising politicians and influencers fall to the dark side of politics and become part of the deep state, because ultimately they are corrupted by the powers that be. And that could be the intelligence agencies. It could just be money. It could be big businesses. They are all in cahoots with one another to try to take control of your lives and to take away your freedom while giving you the illusion that you are more free than ever, because our modern technology makes it seem as if we have more control of our lives than ever, when we are more influenced by their dark forces than ever before. But we're here to combat all of that and to say, let not your hearts be troubled. We will find a way to get through the darkness, and together we can get through this. So what really kicked me off today was George Soros's a power move here of trying to buy 200 radio stations less than 2 months before the most consequential election in U.S. history, and I would argue in global history. And I know that this is always something that the talking heads always love to pontificate. This is the election that's going to change our lives. This is the most important election in history. Blah, blah, blah. We hear this all the time, but I think we all know that we are reaching a precipice of something that we can't quite explain right now. You can feel that something dark is coming, that there is desperation within, the deep state, within the entertainment industry, within the politicians that we're seeing. Everything seems to be coming to a head within global conflict, between divisions of political and racial in this country, between the battle of the sexes, turning children's identities upside down and trying to, confuse them with their, sexual identities and all this stuff. This is all coming to a head right now. And I really feel like 2024 is the nexus point for the way that the entire globe continues going forward. And, power brokers like George Soros are a big factor in all of this right now. So let's start right there. This is going to be a crazy 2 hours. We may not get to everything. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done this, so we will see how long we can go here. If we've got to carry it on to another show, some other time, then that's what we'll do. Because I can tell you that each and every day, it seems like something new is brought to our attention. And many of us over the years that were crying out in the wilderness, trying to warn people about what was going on in this country, what was going on throughout the world, were always labeled as conspiracy theorists, fearmongers, etc. Throw any insult that they can put out there. We've been called every name in the book. And it seems that now almost we've got like a 95% rate of success here, whether it's the origins of the pandemic, whether it's what happened in 2020, before Trump's second term was torpedoed before it could even begin, which in some ways may have been a blessing, because I think we're in a position now where even though things are more dire than ever, more people have been awokened than ever, because we've been seeing what happened with Biden. I think everybody at this point can agree that Biden was a puppet from the start. We were saying it before the 2020 election that Joe Biden, they were hiding him in a basement because they knew that he was not fit to be president, but they needed a puppet in office in order to push their agenda. That has proven to be true. We know that the first debate, he was sent out as a sacrifice. They knew that he could not stand up against Trump. They knew that it was too obvious, his mental decline. So they threw him out. They got rid of the entire Democrat primary, and they installed Kamala as the heir apparent, the weakest, worst, and most left-wing candidate that they pushed in 2016, and in their primaries, and it's obvious. It's obvious. After she got destroyed by Tulsi Gabbard, it should have been in 2020. I should say it should have been obvious to everybody that Kamala was. She really has no substance whatsoever, and all of her ideas are not just morally bankrupt, but they are absolutely moronic and insane. Whether it's her policies on crime, her policies on the environment, her gun confiscation desires, and her far left authoritarian tendencies, we knew from the start that she was pretty much the worst of the worst, and that she used her influence to work her way up the ladder of her career as a prosecutor and as a politician from the start. There was nothing there. She has nothing. There is no tactic that she will not use. There is no identity that she will not assume. There's no accent that she will try to bust out at a rally to try to get what she and her handlers want. And I think one of the scariest things that we've seen in the last few weeks, and that the entire world has seen, is that the presidency of the United States is a figurehead position. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I think you all can see it, there is no president of the United States right now. This country is on complete autopilot right now. We are seeing that it is essentially a Politburo, the cabinet, that is running this country, the powers that be. We don't know. We don't know who is actually in charge here. It is a cabal of political elites that were not elected that are controlling this nation right now. And Joe Biden is there as a puppet, and they are too afraid. And we have to hold Republicans to the feet of the fire on this one too, because why on earth and how on earth is it possible that we have a man who is clearly senile and suffering from dementia, whose wife is now running cabinet meetings? The first cabinet meetings that we've had in over a year were run by the first lady, bringing back, memories of Woodrow Wilson's wife taking over the White House for almost a year after he had a stroke in the early 19-teens. And it was bad back then. They were able to cover it up because we didn't have the mainstream media and social media the way that we have today, 24-hour news cycle. But here it is all out in the open. And they are basically spitting in our faces and disrespecting the American people and telling us, you cannot do a dang thing about this. You know that we have full control over this, that the elections do not matter, that the president does not matter. We have full control. We will flaunt it in your face. We will take away your primaries. We will install our own candidate, and we will have the first lady essentially run the country by de facto along with the cabinet. And you guys aren't going to do anything about it. You're not. You're not going to do anything about it. And oh, by the way, we will also threaten the life multiple times of our top political rival in Donald Trump. And at this point, I don't care what you think of Donald Trump. It is clear that he is the only choice that we have for candidate for the president of the United States. And even he will not be able to take us out of this, because this is so embedded right now that they will do anything to stop his ability from being able to govern. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing polling data that is all over the place. We're seeing crime statistics that are completely suspicious and that make no sense, because we can see with our own eyes what is going on with the rampant crime in this country, with the drug epidemic in this country, with the open border in this country, and the savagery that we're seeing here and throughout the world, that a weak America has destabilized the globe, and there is chaos running rampant everywhere. And individuals like George Soros are responsible for all of this, along with the politicians and the military-industrial complex and the intelligence agencies and the celebrity elites that are the puppets of all of these people. So let's bring up the first article here. Democrat majority, FCC helping George Soros fast-track takeover of nationwide radio network. Quote, this is scary. So let's read the news here. Left-leaning billionaire George Soros is trying to recruit the Democrat-controlled Federal Communications Commission to help fast-track his takeover of the nation's second biggest radio network. Soros, aged 93, I mean, this man just is still above ground. It's crazy, but it won't end, because his son is going to be the heir apparent here. Pumped $400 million into Odyssey in February, a network that reaches roughly 165 monthly listeners and includes a handful of conservative shows from hosts including Sean Hannity, Dana Lash, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and Eric Erickson. So there's going to be a punchline at the end here to show why this is critical. First of all, you can imagine that these are some of the top conservative voices that have been rallying against a lot of the things that I talk about on this show and who I've been fans of for a very long time. Dana Lash is one of the greatest voices in the Second Amendment. Mark Levin is legendary, coming from the Reagan administration. Glenn Beck has probably been yelling about this stuff, for longer than anybody. You may feel certain ways about him, but he's been right about a lot of this stuff. Let's be honest. And, Sean Hannity is Sean Hannity, right? Fox News, whatever. Fox News is kind of the weak link in all this. They haven't done enough, as far as I'm concerned. And, they're pseudo-conservative at this point. But their influence is likely to be muted if the billionaire takes over and imposes his agenda, as has happened with other media acquisitions. In 2022, a George Soros-backed group, Latino Media Network, bought Mambi, a mainstay of Miami's hardline anti-communist Cuban exile community, and 17 other Spanish-language radio stations in a $60 million deal. So that right there already tells you what the move is right here. And the fact that some of the greatest examples that we see in the modern era of authoritarianism in our own backyard, especially something that I interact with every day and I have for decades that I've lived in South Florida, is the Cuban exile community and the Venezuelan community, which is suffering under the jackboot of Maduro right now and the stolen election that they had recently. So we can see it right here. This is something that's actually very close to my heart, because there are people that I care about very much that have family in Venezuela that are being oppressed right now because of what is going on. We can also talk about Twitter and Brazil, which again, other people that I care about very much are being affected by Twitter's shutdown in Brazil. That has nothing to do with Soros, but you know that this is influenced by the powers that be. A source with knowledge of the deal told the Post, quote, "The idea that George Soros is buying hundreds of local radio stations right before a national election and will keep broadcasting Sean Hannity and other conservative talk radio hosts on Odyssey is not credible." End quote. However, to take control, Soros Fund Management needs help from the FCC as the money funneled into buying the bankrupt network comes from abroad. Under FCC rules, foreign company ownership of U.S. radio stations is not allowed to exceed 25%, but a filing acquired by the Post details Soros asking the commission to make an exception. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr is raising an alarm that was first set off by the Texas Congressman Chip Roy. He's a beast. He's a true stud. If you're in Texas, you got to protect Chip Roy in April. Quote, "The FCC should not create a special Soros shortcut," end quote, Carr told the Post this week. When it comes to a broadcast station acquisition of this size and magnitude, hundreds of radio stations across more than 45 markets, the FCC needs to run its full and normal review process. The FCC should not be skipping steps or waiving required agency processes, end quote. Congressman Roy had earlier written the Soros Group would usually petition to get its foreign funding sources vetted by the FCC first, but that they are trying to waive that process and put it off, quote, until sometime down the road, indicating that those foreign stakeholders will be given special warrants in the meantime, end quote, Roy wrote in April. The FCC did not respond to the Post request for comment. In the past 2 years, Soros Fund Management, a rep for which they do not comment on ongoing, said that they do not comment on ongoing transactions, has made big moves into American radio. And again, going back to this, it brokered Univision's $60 million sale in 2022 of 18 mostly conservative Hispanic radio stations, including right-wing powerhouse Radio Mambi. That same year, Soros invested another chunk of cash into the liberal podcast network Crooked Media, home of Pod Save America. Odyssey is the nation's second biggest radio network after the iHeart network, with 220 stations, including New York's WFAN and 1010 WINS, as well as Los Angeles-based KROQ, according to bankruptcy filings. Sources told the Post Soros' stake is equal to about 40% of the company's senior debt, a massive chunk, which, although not a majority, could yield effective control of the media giant when it emerges from bankruptcy. The timing of the deal just months before the 2024 presidential election has raised eyebrows. One insider, noting he is a Republican, said he felt it is possible Soros was buying the stake to exert influence on public opinion in leading up to the election. This is scary, the source was quoted as saying at the time. In June 2022, the Soros-backed Latino media group, Bot Mambi, yes, we heard about this. The newly formed network was run by two former Democrat operatives, Stephanie Valencia and Jess Morales Roqueto, who worked on Barack Obama's and Hillary Clinton's political campaigns. Valencia also worked in the Obama White House. Venezuelan-born former Radio Mambi host Lourdes Ubieta quit the station after she learned of the takeover that summer. Ironically, Ubieta now hosts a conservative Spanish-language radio show, En Este País con Lourdes Ubieta, on Radio Libre on 790 on the Odyssey network in Miami, created after the demise of the old Radio Mambi. Ubieta cannot comment on her current job, but told the Post the Latin media network, which did not respond to the Post request for comments, essentially neutralized Radio Mambi by shutting down all political content at the station. They kept the name Radio Mambi, but they made it all soft shows like sports and entertainment, Ubieta told the Post. Everything was hardcore anti-communist politics on Radio Mambi. That is all gone now. And look, if there is one thing that the authoritarians in this country hate more than anything, it is minorities that stand up and destroy the narratives that they are trying to push here. And Latinos in South Florida have been rallying this call for years. The Cuban exile community has been staunchly conservative and showing the horrors of communism under the Castro regime since they took over in the 1960s after the revolution. And they've been continuously showing and influencing a lot of the politics here in South Florida. That is why in the last election cycle, Miami-Dade County flipped from being a blue county to a red county, and why Florida has been moving from the precipice of being a blue state to becoming redder and redder every year. And I would argue that Florida is becoming really the state of conservatism and freedom, even over Texas, because we've been seeing Texas slowly become more and more purple over the last few election cycles. And Texas is really the one that we have to save from that influence. We've seen the influx of illegal migrants there. We've seen the influx of California refugees running after the pandemic into the Austin area, completely turning the state blue. Greg the Goblin coming in with the $20 super chat. We haven't seen Greg in a while. Thank you, Greg. You snuck up on me with this one. I snuck up on a lot of people, Greg. God bless you. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. I snuck up on myself with this one. I didn't think I was going to do a rant. I didn't know when I was going to do a rant again, to be honest with you. But things are so dire right now. And again, some people have been hearing me talk about this every day. I literally talk to the old man and to the mod extraordinaire about this stuff pretty much every single day. They hear it. And I think in a sense, they're like, Rolo, you've got too much of a knack for this stuff. You gotta go live again. And so I decided, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. I don't care what day of the week it is. I didn't even know it was a Tuesday today. I thought it was Wednesday because everything is just so whack with this news cycle. And I decided to come back and talk about this stuff. But, you know, it's funny because I started talking about Soros today, and immediately I get pounced on by left-wing people. And you know, Ripa Eric D. July, who I've always been a fan of, and who I always considered a friend, and really gave me some early opportunities in streaming. I appreciate him. I'm glad that the Rippaverse is doing great, and he's blessed for all the success he deserves, everything. But he always talks about monetizing your haters, and I think that it just says a lot. That I just posted this on Twitter. And, they start throwing out the Sinclair Media Group, which is a conservative conglomerate that owns the majority, a huge amount of radio stations in this country. But they've been accumulating these radio stations over the course of decades. And, what they really hate about the Sinclair Media Group and about conservative talk radio is that when conservative talk radio came about in the 80s and the Fairness Doctrine was eliminated, during the Reagan administration, which for those of you that don't know, the Fairness Doctrine was a set of regulations that essentially said that if a radio station was going to talk about politics, they had to give equal time to both left-wing and right-wing commentators. That's BS. Because in the marketplace of ideas, the people are the ones that should choose what they want to hear. So the government should have no influence over what a private business wants to air over their airwaves. And you know what it really was? It was that guys like Rush Limbaugh started coming onto the stage, and we started destroying left-wing media and authoritarian progressives at their own game. And they hated it because they controlled the entertainment industry. They controlled music. They influenced the culture, but they could not destroy right-wing talk radio. And it has driven them mad ever since. So this is a power play to circumvent all those things. They can't get a modern fairness doctrine. So if you can't beat them, buy them and shut them down. And that's exactly what they're trying to do here. This is what they've been doing with social media. This is why Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, X, and turning it into a platform of free speech throughout the world has been such a thorn in their side. It is the biggest pain in the butt for them, and they absolutely hate it because they know that in the marketplace of ideas, they espouse nothing but authoritarianism, totalitarianism. the death of free speech and absolute depravity and insanity. And they know that if they go toe to toe with any of us, even some of the even just normal Joe Schmo in the street that has read the Constitution, they know that they will get absolutely, utterly destroyed. Because as the great Andrew Wilkow says, the arguments on this program cannot be beaten because we use truth, logic, and the American way to win our arguments. And really, we stand on the side of history and freedom. And those are principles that cannot be destroyed. Those are the founding principles of this country. And they've been corrupted every single day since this country was founded, because as governments expand control, it is really bothersome for people to be able to stand up against it. And they really, man, the authoritarians hate it. They really do. They hate the fact that a Latino millennial can sit on the airwaves right now on a platform that is on multiple platforms, actually, but on one which they thoroughly control. And I can say all these things and they can't do a dang thing about it. And it really, really pisses them off. And that is why they will stop at absolutely nothing to silence our voices in the long run. This is why you're seeing what is happening in Brazil right now with them trying to shut down X, finding people that try to use VPNs. I mean, look, we have lost some of our best voices, and I hate to say this, Dan Vasc is fantastic. I haven't seen Dan Vasc tweet since September 2nd, and I understand why that is probably the case. Dan has always stood up to the authoritarianism within his country. He has always been excited to be, to share his support of the United States. But, he has people that he cares about, and he's a person of influence. So I can imagine that if there's anybody that the government of Brazil is going to go after, it's somebody like him. And Brazil is a freedom-loving country. I know for a fact, I know people that live in Brazil right now and that speak to a lot of the people of Brazil there every day. And Bolsonaro was an extremely popular candidate there, and he undermined the powers that be. So Brazil being a freedom-loving country with, people that love the United States for the most part. A lot of people may be surprised to hear that, but it is true. Has been undermined by left-wing authoritarianism, and we're seeing that with the Lula government and their authoritarian Supreme Court run by Voldemort. And that is why X, which was the most popular social media network in Brazil, is being suppressed there. And even means to circumvent it, like VPNs, which every person in the world should be allowed to use a VPN. Brazil is a test ground because Brazil is not a third world country. Brazil is a rising nation with some of the greatest natural resources and abundance in natural resources in the world. So if you nip a country that is a rising power like Brazil in the bud, especially a country that has already had, was pushing against China with Bolsonaro, even though they are part of the BRICS economic alliance, they were really pushing back against that. This is a coup for them. This is a testing ground to see what they can get away with in the rest of the West. We're seeing it in the UK. As far as I'm concerned, the United States really has no allies. And really, what is the United States at this moment? Is our government the United States? Are we really two different things now? I just watched a video before going live here by Mike Benz explaining how the intelligence agencies run by the State Department, actually, which I thought it was the reverse, have basically created the American empire and are running basically the rest of the globe. And so I think we're using a lot of these other countries. This is why the globalists love China so much, right? Because China, especially in recent decades, has given an illusion of progress. They love to tout that there's really no crime in China. Look at all the cities. They have some of the most futuristic Blade Runner style cities in the world. They have all this. Look, they have electronics everywhere. They have social media networks. They have all this, but they have no freedom. They have the illusion of freedom. So China is a test bed for how far can an authoritarian state go before the people snap. You give them enough bread and circuses. You give us enough Netflix and chill. You give people drugs, pornography, video games, streaming services, food delivery, all this stuff, but you take away their freedoms. You take away their property rights, their ability to speak. How much will people accept before they finally snap? And I think that the lockdowns showed us that people will accept a lot, especially in countries that are not the United States of America. So this is why we're seeing this. This is why Brazil was targeted specifically. And this is why we're seeing the fall of Europe, because they do not want us to be free. The third world is being imported into the West and other nations to destroy our cultures and to destroy our freedoms. And Europe, we've seen this. Europe has basically fallen at this point. There are a lot of freedom-loving people that are realizing what has gone on, but they don't have a First and Second Amendment in these other countries. And there is really nothing that they can do to push back against the authoritarianism that they've seen and the invasion of military-aged men, of theocratic societies and Islam coming into their nations and completely undermining their societies and causing chaos. And that is what we're seeing here in the United States with the rampant crime, with the fentanyl epidemic. We're seeing, not only migrants from illegal migrants from Central and South America, which most of them seem to be military-aged males. We're seeing what's going on in cities like Springfield, Ohio, with the Haitian immigrants. We've been seeing how, again, Islamist forces have been embedded into this country. We've been seeing how China has sent their nationals here, probably ready to sabotage things. Our enemies are being imported into this country to undermine the American people. Corporations are colluding with this because they want cheap, essentially slave labor in this country, and Americans are being pushed out because guess what? They hate us because we love freedom. We love the things that we've worked for, and we are too much of a pain in the butt for them because we are too uppity and we talk way too much, and they know that we will stand against all of this authoritarianism that they are trying to shove down our throats. And that is why the populist movement led by Donald Trump, who I actually think Donald Trump did not even realize until he got into office just how bad all of this was. And even until recently, I think, if the two impeachments didn't do it, then the two assassination attempts definitely did it, because now we are seeing a political coalition on the right, the likes of which has never been seen before. And you can sure as hell bet that they are terrified of an administration that will include the likes of Donald Trump as president, J.D. Vance as vice president, Vivek Ramaswamy in some sort of position, Elon Musk as the head of the Department of Government Accountability, Doge, Tulsi Gabbard maybe influencing the Department of Defense and getting us out of these endless wars, and Robert F. Kennedy blowing the top off the intelligence agencies and the pharmaceutical industrial complex in this country that has been making people sick for decades by forcing processed foods down on us and allowing us to be sick all the time because a sick people are too busy worrying about their health to pay attention to what is going on all around them. And that is a coalition that the deep state simply cannot have. And that is why they will go to any lengths in order to stop. Oh man, look at that. I'm already losing my voice. To stop this man from becoming president of the United States. And I think that is blatantly obvious with everything that we have seen. They tried the memory hole, the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. And now all of a sudden they release all the information on this guy, Ruth. And they talk about this $150,000 bounty that he has for Trump's head. But we couldn't get the manifesto from the trans shooter in Tennessee for over a year. And oh, by the way, we only got that because a journalistic organization was able to get a copy of it and leak it to the public. So pretty convenient. And you're telling me that somehow the feds have only charged Ruth with two firearms charges. That's it. Federal firearms charges. No attempted assassination of a political candidate. No murder charges. None of that stuff. That's all they've got him on. And meanwhile, we have Ron DeSantis here, who, look, I know that the primary, look, politics is a bloodthirsty sport. Ron DeSantis ran a campaign that was pretty disappointing. I love Ron DeSantis as governor of Florida. He's done a lot of great things, and he's going to be an important figure in the future of the Republican Party going forward. He may have blown his shot at becoming president, but there's no doubt that he's going to be important. And he is exposing the feds right now by running his own investigation, having Ashley Moody, and the Florida Department of Justice try to head this off. But the feds aren't going to allow him to do anything. They really aren't. He's ready to press murder charges to get to the bottom of this, but they're undermining the one person here who's actually trying to do something about this. And it's not by design. And it's not a coincidence, I should say. It's all by design, because they ultimately don't want us to get to the bottom of all of this. And they are going to continue to take shots at Trump or allow people to take shots at Trump. So that's what they want to do. So they, if the feds won't do it, then let the state do it, because this was a crime that was committed on state grounds. But they're not going to allow that to happen, right? They're not going to allow that to happen. And, it's really convenient that the son of Ryan Ruth, all of a sudden, he's been arrested for child prawn charges. And I'm saying that incorrectly on purpose. So kind of interesting here. Let's actually bring that up, because, the largest mass, one of the largest mass killings in U.S. history was the Vegas shooting, and we still don't know the motive of that guy. But would you be surprised if I told you that his brother was also arrested for having inappropriate materials of children on his computer? Could that be a coincidence? Could it be that some of these people maybe know a little bit more than meets the eye? I'm not saying that any of these people are good, but we already know. I mean, look, I'm going to move on to the Diddy stuff at some point, and you guys know where we're going to go with this. The government has a tendency, the powers that be, the intel agencies have a tendency to use bad people to do even worse things to get blackmail on people, and then these people just happen to disappear. Or, hang themselves, right? Like, this just seems to happen. Like Epstein, right? Epstein just kind of offed himself. And, we're supposed to believe that. But I digress. Let's read this one. And, of course, we're always using the mainstream media sources against them, because that's what we do, right? Then they can't dispute anything. I'm using their own words here. So, what are they going to say about that? Son of Ryan Ruth, accused in Trump assassination attempt, arrested for child prawn. Orrin Ruth had hundreds of files of inappropriate images of children, prosecutors say. The son of Ryan Ruth, a man arrested in connection with the second apparent assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, has been taken into custody on federal charges of possessing inappropriate images of children. Investigators say they discovered hundreds of files with inappropriate images during a search of Orrin Ruth's residence in Guilford County, North Carolina on Saturday, conducted, quote, in connection with an investigation unrelated to child exploitation. The two charges he faces include receipt of inappropriate images and the possession of inappropriate images of children. The unrelated investigation referred to Ruth's father, who remains in custody after a judge ordered him detained pending trial Monday. A spokesperson with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Carolina confirmed to ABC News. Investigators said that the images were found on a Samsung Galaxy Note device located inside Orrin's primary bedroom in the residence, as well as another Galaxy Note device in Ruth's possession. A review of the SD card located in device one revealed that it contained hundreds of inappropriate image files. Prosecutors wrote in the criminal complaint. These files include videos from a known series created outside of the state of North Carolina. The complaint included graphic descriptions of the videos in a chat from July in which Orrin Ruth allegedly responded to someone advertising the content for sale. Orrin Ruth will make an initial appearance in North Carolina federal court later Tuesday. He does not yet have an attorney listed for him. His father, Ryan Ruth, age 58, has been charged with possession of a firearm as a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number for the incident that took place at Trump International Golf Club on September 15th. Prosecutors said Monday they intend to ask a grand jury to consider to charge Ryan Ruth Ryan Ruth attempted to assassinate Trump. So there you go. They're going to try to use the grand jury for this. So, you know, as far as this second attempt goes, you know, how is it possible that Ryan Ruth was able to stay on the Mar-a-Lago grounds for more than 12 hours before trying to take a shot at President Donald Trump? How is this possible? And how is it possible that they were able to get all the information on the location of his cell phone so quickly this time, but when it came to the first shooter, they weren't able to decrypt his phones. They weren't able to find out about these offshore accounts. They don't know how the heck he got onto that rooftop. They don't know anything like that. So it's almost as if they're like, whoa, we left too many threads on the first one for the conspiracy theorists to try to question us. So now we got to give them a pre-made package on this one. So, you know, it was interesting to see how quickly the Secret Service and the feds came out and had a news conference essentially the day of this happening. You know, but you know, the best thing about this is that despite all of this happening, despite the fact that they've tried to kill Donald Trump twice so far that we know of, the narrative from the left-wing media and the politicians doesn't change. Trump is still a threat to democracy. He's the biggest threat to this world. You have Hillary Clinton coming out and saying, how can the media, when will the media start holding Donald Trump accountable? There was a great montage on Steve Deace's show that his producer made last week, and it just showed the juxtaposition. I wish I could show it. Of seeing Hillary Clinton spew the garbage, which this woman is one of the most vile human beings ever to live. And she is truly the greatest threat to one of the greatest threats to freedom in this country. Thank goodness she lost that election. But it's clear that she is influencing Kamala, and Kamala is basically her heir apparent. She is the amalgamation of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama combined into one heinous swamp creature. You know, we have Hillary Clinton here essentially gaslighting everybody and saying, how is it possible that the media is not holding him accountable? When you've got Lester Holt and all these other people saying, well, you know, Trump's rhetoric, he basically brought this upon himself, right? He basically brought this upon himself. And, you know, this type of gaslighting, media, coercion, lies is really driving people crazy. And the greatest example of this is a recent poll that came out with Rasmussen. And, you know, a lot of polls are suspect, especially lately. The polls have been all over the place. It is pretty obvious that the scales are being influenced here. But you have a poll that came out last week. And here, Tulsi referenced this, but I'll try to look for the original poll here. Rasmussen poll. I should have had this one brought up, but this is not one that I was going to talk about today. 28% of Democrats. So we'll bring this up. Here we go. All right. So essentially, okay. So we have this poll. Tulsi brought it up here. Let's bring up Tulsi here. And she brought it up. New Rasmussen poll reveals the disturbing results of the decade-long dehumanization campaign against Trump by the Democratic Party and the propaganda media. 28% of Democrats. Now, the question of this poll was, do you think that essentially the country would have been better off if President Trump had been, taken out by one of these assassination attempts? 28% of Democrat voters said yes. And another 24% said that they basically they were basically like, whatever, they're apathetic. Either way, it would have been pretty much okay with them. So you had 52%, a majority of Democrat voters essentially giving either wholehearted approval or being okay with President Donald Trump being assassinated. How far gone is this country when it's not just the politicians saying it, when it is essentially our neighbors that are saying that they would like to see Donald Trump dead? And what does that say about what they would think about the rest of us or people that would vote for Donald Trump? What does that say? And what does that tell you about the direction that this country is going and what they are trying to prime us for? And the bloody mindedness that the left has pushed here. And sometimes I hate saying the left because it's clear that this is a uniparty thing. But unfortunately, here in the trenches, we have your typical Joe Schmo, voter, that if you're in the Democrat Party, I mean, look, if you see this and you're somebody that's voted Democrat and you don't agree with that, you really need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I may not be willing to vote for Donald Trump, but is this a party that I want to be affiliated and associated with? A party where the majority of my peers advocate for the killing of political rivals? Do I want to be a part of that? You have to ask yourself that question. Do you want to be a part of that? Do you? And if you do, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. And this is why the first time in my life, and despite my, the fact that I've moved towards Christianity, look, I believe in redemption. I absolutely do. People can be forgiven. If you repent and you feel it in your heart, you'll absolutely be saved. As a Christian, we want to bring more people into the fold. Nobody is beyond redemption. But this really makes you feel like I can't be friends with anybody who would vote for Kamala Harris. I really can't, because they literally want to kill Donald Trump. That's what they want. So what will they do to me? They want to take away my rights to free speech. They want to take away my guns. They want to take away my ability to go around the world freely. They want to take away my vehicles. They want to take away our homes. They want us, in order to push, the Green New Deal on their agendas. They want us to stop eating beef. They don't want us to fly anymore. They want to take away our freedom of movement. They want us to give up our possessions. Live in a pod and eat the bugs is more apropos than ever. They want us to lose our jobs to migrants, illegal migrants that they're bringing in every day so that they can get their slave labor and leave Americans unemployed and powerless. They want to take away your children anytime that you disagree with their perverse sexual ideologies, trying to confuse children on what a man is and what a woman is. They want to push their DEI policies on you. And if you say no, you're called a racist and they'll take away your jobs. This is what they want to do. And a majority of voters on the other side seem to support all of this. And they say that we're the ones that are deplorables. This is what they do. They are trying to flip the script on us, to demonize us and accuse us of the things that they have been doing for decades now. And I will be damned if I allow my voice to be silenced and allow these people to take over this country. We will not go down without a fight, and we will let our voices be heard every single day until our last breaths, because these people cannot be allowed to take over this country and to crush freedom throughout the world. They must be exposed at every turn. They must be shamed. And there is no reconciliation at this point. If people do not want to reconcile, and if they truly believe this, then there is nothing that we can do. And we are in a political conflict of our lives. That is what we are in right now. So we have to push back against this. And if people are not willing to listen, there is nothing that we can do about it. And I will be right there with the I told you so's at the end of the day, because I will make sure that everybody that votes for Kamala Harris will feel the absolute shame of what they have done and how they will destroy this country, destroy the lives of their children's children, and ultimately lead to the destruction of this entire planet, because we are literally dealing with forces. The rest of the world is essentially lost. We've got one country, and they're being demonized by everybody that's actually fighting against a lot of forces in Israel. Oh no, now people are going to get angry when I mention that. The only country that's actually fighting against evil forces, but we have the American people here. We have God-fearing, Second Amendment loving, freedom loving Americans here that make up maybe a little bit less than half the population of this country. And we are literally the ones that are holding back the floodgates of totalitarianism for here and the rest of the world. Because once the U.S. is done, that's it. It's checkmate for the rest of the world, because nobody else has freedom of speech and nobody else has firearms the way that we do. And nobody else will be able to stand up against the military industrial complex and the mass surveillance apparatus that exists here. And this is all by design. This is all by design. This is why they're atomizing us. This is why they're destroying the family. This is why they want your children. This is why every day they push against men and women as well, which is one of the crusades that I have always fought against, that we need to resist, absolutely resist the demonization of the sexes by both sides that we're doing here. Men and women, we have to come together. There is too much hatred here. There is too much blaming here. I hear it way too much of, toxic masculinity on one side and repeal the 19th Amendment on the other. That is exactly what they want, because they know that a bond between a man and a woman, and the fact that we can create life, raise children, and have a connection that transcends any power that any government can influence, they want to destroy that. They want to atomize us and live as depressed individuals in our pods that feel powerless and hatred towards their fellow man, so that they can continue to use us as pawns, wage slaves, and labor, suck us dry of our money, and just keep us there for our votes, while they take absolutely everything away from us. Because you know that they're not going to stop using their private jets. They're not going to stop eating meat. They're not going to stop traveling throughout the world. They're not going to stop accumulating wealth, buying land, and staying healthy. They're not going to stop having children. How many of these elites, quote unquote elites, they don't even deserve the name, do you see? They all seem to have marriages. They all seem to have families, yet they want you. They want us. They want us to be individuals. They want us to be alone every day. They don't want us to have kids. They want you to feel guilty about having children. They want you to feel guilty about having upward mobility, buying your own house, owning multiple cars, being able to go on trips. They want you to feel guilty about having everything that they have and everything that they accumulated. Why? Because they do not want to share it with us. They do not want the unwashed masses to be able to go to the places that they go to, and they don't want us to be able to rise up from the peon class to the aristocracy that they have. The middle class is something that they hate more than anything else, because they want to be able to go to the places that they go to without you, the peons being there. They don't want to see any of us here. They are disgusted by our existence and our desires, and the fact that we speak up against them, and the fact that we have faith not only in ourselves, we have faith in God. We have faith in our ability to move forward. We have faith in family, faith in our freedom, and faith in what this country stands for. And they absolutely despise that, because they want you to be crushed and demoralized. And every time that you stand up for President Trump, that you stand up for yourself, that you watch a podcast, that you become part of a podcast, that you vote against them, that you rise up against them, that you go to a PTA meeting and say that you're not going to accept this gender ideology. When you go to a sports game with something as simple as a wristband with two X's representing double X chromosomes because you're upset that your daughters are going up against men and being injured in sports and losing their opportunities, they hate the fact that you stand up against that and they despise you. And that is why they will do anything to steal this upcoming election and to make sure that your voice is silenced because they want to finish this once and for all. And they will not stop until they do so. They will absolutely not stop until they do so. And that is what they want. And that is what we can allow. And we will not, we'll absolutely not allow any of this to happen, because even if they win, they will just awaken a sleeping giant and they have no idea what they are doing right now. I think the fact that you're seeing them throw everything against the wall, it's the spaghetti technique. They're just flinging spaghetti against the wall. They want to see what sticks. That's why the polls are all over the place. This is why Kamala wants another debate. This is why they're panicking, why they continue the rhetoric of hatred against Donald Trump. This is why they keep trying to take him down, because they are absolutely and utterly desperate. They demonize Elon Musk. They try to say that, big time conservative speakers like Benny Johnson and Tim Pool are Russian agents, and they push all these narratives. They keep pushing all of this stuff because they are desperate, and they know that we know what they're up to at this point. And I think they are starting to realize that they're going to lose control of this situation. And it is ironic. It is very interesting that we see things like this now coming up to play, because I think the powers that be completely understand what they are doing, and essentially what they know exactly what they're doing, and they know the trouble that they may get into here. So let's read this article here. Scarred by violence, lawmakers plan for possible mass casualty event. Interesting. Congress must ensure it can continue to govern in the aftermath of mass violence, a bipartisan group of House members argues. This is from the Washington Post. Now, this was from 5 days ago, but it seems like a lot of people have not caught on to this one. Imagine the unthinkable. A mass killing of members of Congress that leaves a large swath of the country unrepresented and shifts the balance of political power in Washington. In the current political environment, such an outbreak of violence is not as unthinkable as it used to be, according to a bipartisan collection of House members. The attempted assassination of members at a congressional baseball team practice in 2017, the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, probably orchestrated by the feds, a dramatic spike in threats against members, and most recently, a possible second assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump highlight the need for Congress to ensure it can continue to govern in the aftermath of mass violence, they said. To address such a scenario, these 4 House members, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, the uniparty at its best, are pushing an unlikely solution, a constitutional amendment that would allow members to be replaced quickly in the event of a mass casualty event. In addition to ensuring uninterrupted representation for constituents, the amendment would discourage attempts to use violence to sway the balance of power in the House. We've seen a 300% increase in threats against members over the last 7 years, according to the Capitol Police, said Representative Derek Kilmer, Democrat from Washington, one of 4 lawmakers pushing the issue. Quote, in an environment where we have seen a growing tendency towards political violence, imagine horrifically a baseball practice where someone has bad intentions and better aim. You can literally flip a majority for 3 to 4 months, which I think is a frightening incentive for political violence. Interesting that we have a Democrat lawmaker saying this now when they didn't care about what happened to Steve Scalise and those Republicans a few years ago, right? They didn't give a crap back then. But now, now they're worried about it. Now they're worried about it, right? According to a survey of state election officials, states need between 3 and 4 months on average to hold a special election to replace a deceased House member, a function of the time it takes to print ballots, in addition to a federal law requiring ballots to be mailed to overseas and military voters at least 45 days ahead of an election. That's actually a really long time to have a vacancy if you're in the midst of a national crisis, Kilmer said. Kilmer teamed up with Representatives Brad Wenstrup, Republican from Ohio, and William Timmons, Republican from South Carolina, and Emmanuel Cleaver II, Democrat from Missouri, to come up with a proposal that Congress can continue its work if a large number of its members are killed in a mass attack. Their proposed constitutional amendment would require each member of the House to submit the names of at least 5 individuals from his or her political party to their state's governor. In the event of that representative's death, the governor would choose a name from the list within 10 days, and the House Speaker would be required to seat them immediately. The continuity amendment would also deny a would-be assassin the power to flip control of the House from one party to another, Kilmer said. The interim appointee would only serve until a special election could take place. It does not impose the same standard on the Senate, where states may choose to fill vacancies with a temporary appointment until a special election can take place. Enacting a constitutional amendment is difficult, requiring a two-thirds vote of both houses of Congress, as well as ratification by 3/4 of state legislatures. The last ratification took place in 1992, when the 27th Amendment was adopted, requiring that any pay raise enacted by Congress for itself may not go into effect until after the next election. Congress should eliminate the incentive for an individual to commit political violence for purpose of tipping the balance of power. Wenstrup argued at a committee on House Administration Subcommittee hearing on the measure Wednesday. A domestic terrorist attempted to assassinate Republican members of Congress. Wenstrup, who treated House Majority Whip Steve Scalise after he was shot during the congressional baseball team attack, recalled the shooting. He had names in his pockets, descriptions in his pocket. This is a clear assassination attempt, and he decided to use murder or assassination as a tool for political change. He wanted to wipe out the Republican majority and change the balance of power. I would contend that's an insurrection by one person. Wenstrup added, both Kilmer and Wenstrup are retiring at the end of this year, and the chances the amendment would pass through a narrowly divided Congress are slim. 40 constitutional amendments have been introduced since 1945. None of them passed. Representative Stephanie Bice, Bicey, Republican from Oklahoma, chairwoman of the subcommittee, noted in her opening remarks. Bice said the track record helped explain why, in the wake of the terrorist attacks of September 11th, Congress opted instead to change federal law requiring a state to hold a special election within 49 days in the event of an extraordinary circumstance where vacancies in the House chamber exceed 100 seats. 9 states have laws for holding special elections to fill House vacancies that are consistent with federal law that requires a special election to be held within 49 days of vacancy, according to Rebecca Gambler, director of the Government Accountability Office's Homeland Security and Justice Division. But 41 states do not have such laws, and some officials responding to a GAO survey expressed concern about their ability to hold an election in such a tight time frame. Only 27 states have responded to the survey so far, Gambler said, but some state election officials reported that it would be difficult to select candidates within the time frame required by law. Officials also noted challenges related to preparing and printing ballots, identifying polling places and poll workers, and transmitting absentee ballots to military and overseas voters, said Gambler, who added that some election officials alternatively provided suggestions and best practices on how to hold a special election in such a tight time frame. A final report will be issued in the coming months. JM, the elite fan, reading my mind. That is the exact thing that I am asking for here. What is it that they know that we don't? And, I've thought about this a lot because, look, there are so many things that have happened lately that you really, it's not conspiratorial anymore. It is absolutely logical and valid to ask these types of questions. We know that they're trying to kill Donald Trump. Who is it? I don't know. I can't give you proof of who it is. I think we all know. Who's trying to take out Donald Trump. I think that when you have, and hail to Hypnotic in the chat, good to see you there, buddy. My Puerto Rican brother from another mother. You know, I think we all know, because the biggest threat to the intelligence state is populism. It's absolutely populism. And, you know, I need to bring this up here because, you know, the mod extraordinaire, Carla in the chat, who is as brilliant of a ranter as I have ever seen. You guys would be blessed to hear the rants that she's got, but she keeps things low key, and I totally understand. She sent me a great video earlier, and it was by a gentleman called Mike Benz. Yes, I'm throwing you out there, mod extraordinaire. I'm giving you credit here because you've basically become like a de facto producer here. Mike Benz, he used to be a member of the State Department. He discusses the history of the intelligence state. It's 40 minutes long. I'm not going to play all of it. I'll start a little bit with the intro. Maybe we'll go about 2 or 3 minutes here, and then I will drop the link to this, to his account here, and we'll pin this. There you go. Of course, you're doing God's work here, Carla. So the people need to know, and go ahead and follow her on X as well, because she brings the fire. She is not afraid at all to give her opinions. And she's just as vociferous as I can be. She's a beast in her own right when it comes to this stuff. Here we go. Mike Benz. He is the executive director at FFO Freedom. He used to be in the State Department's cybersecurity division. And he's been blowing the lid off of essentially the deep state here. He gave a 40-minute presentation, 42-minute presentation at Hillsdale College, essentially going through the history of the intelligence, the deep state, how the CIA and the State Department have essentially colluded since the end of World War II to influence elections throughout the world and to spread propaganda within the United States through entertainment, the media, even using the Vatican and its connections, strong-arming the Italian mafia itself, which that goes to a whole can of worms if you really want to go there with, the Kennedy assassination attempt, which some people have said it was the Soviets. Some people have said it was the Cubans. There was an investigation that said that it may have been the mob. Most of us, RFK being the prominent one, think it was the CIA themselves. Well, if the CIA controls the mob, maybe it was the mob being controlled by the CIA. But I digress. I won't get that conspiratorial. Let's let the man speak here, and you can see for yourselves. We'll let this go a few minutes here. We'll get the intro out of the way, but it's good stuff, and then you guys can continue on your own time. I think it is worth watching here. So let's bring this up and check it out.
Intelligence state, and what I'm going to try to describe to you is the shape of the beast that we are up against and that has targeted so many people in this room. Hillsdale asked me to speak about this particular topic, the history of the intelligence state. Obviously, the intelligence state is a concept that implies that intelligence has taken over the state and that it has somehow gone rogue. Something has gone very wrong, that intelligence, which is supposed to serve the state, has subsumed it. I will present the essential history of the intelligence state, but there is something beyond it that I think, beginning with that, helps elucidate, and that may be the octopus that was just referred to, but we'll come to meet it towards as we progress. So I think the best way to understand is to actually start the story in the middle, and then we will go back in time to the founding of the country. We'll sort of speed run the essential history, and then all the way up into the present. But we're going to start in the year 1948. This is the sort of 0 AD of the founding of the intelligence capacities of the U.S. government. And instead of sort of doing what you'll learn in an ordinary history book, we're going to start with a document that I'm curious if anyone has ever seen. It's called The Inauguration of Organized Political Warfare. Anyone ever seen that document in this room? How many people in this room know the name George Kennan? Okay, 75% of the hands went up. Did you know that George Kennan in 1948 wrote this memo called The Inauguration of Organized Political Warfare? in which he's famous for folks who are not familiar. George Kennan is sort of known as a sort of godfather figure of American diplomacy and the Central Intelligence Agency. He was famous for this long telegram, the chief strategist of the containment strategy of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But before all that, when all of this was getting started, he penned this top secret memo, which was not declassified for 60 years. It was declassified in 2005, that I think helps elucidate the story as we're going to proceed here. We're going to go through this memo, but I want to give some context first. The inauguration of organized political warfare was written just 12 days after the Central Intelligence Agency did its first government overthrow operation, its first election rigging event. That was on April 18th, 1948, and this was written just 12 days after that. And the particular focus was what had just happened in Italy. Italy was having its first democratic election after World War II, and it posited a US-backed candidate on the one hand and a Russia-backed candidate on the other. And when the rules-based international order was being established in 1948, and we had these coordinating bodies through the National Security Council, the very first memo I have just on screen here emphasizes how important it is for the U.S. to control the political affairs of Italy. You'll see National Security Council memo 1-1 is titled "The Positioning of the United States with Respect to Italy." Kennan wrote, "Italy is obviously the key point. If the communists win there, our whole position would probably be undermined." Now, what happened in this case was, in 1947, the Central Intelligence Agency was established under the National Security Act, and it was originally intended to have intelligence focus on gathering and analysis. But because of the key importance perceived by the U.S. State Department to influence the course of the Italian election, it developed a makeshift ad hoc, thrown together at the last minute, $250 million operation to swing that election in favor of the candidate that the U.S. government preferred. And I just have some statistics here and a little bit of context, because we're going to see this as a repeating theme.
So let's go ahead and read this, because I'm not sure he doesn't. The inauguration of organized political warfare from April 30th, 1948. Overall, the U.S. government funneled the equivalent of $250 million in 2023 dollars into Italy for specifically anti-PCI purposes. The CIA also made use of off-the-books sources of financing to interfere in the election. More than $10 million were steered into propaganda. CIA clandestine service agent F. Mark Wyatt later explained, "We had bags of money that we delivered to selected politicians to defray their political expenses, their campaign expenses for posters and pamphlets. They threatened the withholding of Marshall Fund money. If the wrong party was elected, the Marshall Fund was the fund used to rebuild Europe after World War II. CIA's Voice of America networks kicked into high gear for propaganda." Oh, Voice of America, Free Radio, Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia. Are all these things familiar to you? Funneled aid money through churches and charity fronts to union and mafia street muscle. Oh, really? Worked with union and mafia gangsters to stuff ballot boxes and bribe election officials. Interesting. Using organized crime and work unions. Ah, interesting. Does any of that sound familiar? Worked with Hollywood to swing cultural perceptions toward a CIA-backed candidate. Huh. Interesting. Does this sound like things that have been going on very recently as well? Could it be that there were other countries' elections that were influenced? Could it be that they're looking inwardly and trying to influence our very own elections in this country? Is that possible? Could it be that a certain country in Eastern Europe that has been funneling money for our political adversaries, that a certain president whose name rhymes with pump, maybe got impeached for because he was trying to find out if there was an influence campaign, or if, you know, a certain former vice president, current puppet president may have been, you know, funneling money there? Could it be that the Clintons maybe had money there? Could it be that we're trying to push a war in Ukraine? Did we influence the election of Vladimir Zelensky through a color revolution or anything like that? Influenced by the CIA? I mean, this sounds really familiar. I feel like we're living in the sequel right now, aren't we?
So about $250 million were spent of U.S. taxpayer money in order to prop up our preferred candidate. The CIA made use of off-the-book sources of funding to finance it. We had bags of money that were delivered to selected politicians to pay for their political expenses, their campaign expenses, for posters, for pamphlets. We threatened the Italian government that aid money from the U.S. would be withheld if the wrong person got elected. Our newly created CIA proprietary media organizations, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, set up a vast spawn of Italian network news in order to create a surround sound inside that country to buy U.S. propaganda and messaging. We funneled aid money through churches and charity fronts to mafia and union street muscle. We worked with Hollywood.
The Vatican was involved. What?
Greta Garbo films and others into the country. And the reason I'm starting with this context is not just because it will help explain the rationale for the beast that was created just 6 weeks after this memo was penned, also by George Kennan, but it's because understand that this is the intelligence services co-opting all of these organizations, which is to say that when the U.S. government provides funding or assistance, suddenly the churches that they were working with are no longer simply churches. They are instruments of statecraft. The nonprofit charities are no longer simply charities. They become instruments of statecraft. The media is no longer an independent media. It is an instrument of statecraft. Hollywood becomes an instrument of statecraft. Organized criminal mafias, and just so you understand the context of this, the predecessor to the CIA, the OSS, together with our War Department, as it was called at the time, was working with criminal groups in Italy, as well as with church organizations and others who were being prosecuted by Mussolini, and they served as a sort of guerrilla resistance to assist the U.S. Army in intelligence operations. And so we had that network established. It was unseemly but seen as necessary in a time of war, but it was simply maintained in times of peace for political war. But then suddenly, organized crime becomes not a criminal offense, but rather a sanctioned instrument of statecraft. And just to drive that point home, this is Miles Copeland, one of the founding members of the CIA, in his own book, wrote that had it not been for the mafia, the communists would by now be in control of Italy. Why was all this necessary? Well, this was necessary because in the eyes of the U.S. State Department, we would have lost the election if the intelligence community hadn't rigged it. 60% of the vote would have gone to the communists, but for CIA intervention in their assessment. And I'm going to just urge throughout this that when you hear communist or fascist in terms of the historical data points we're going to go over, understand that in the post-2016 world, all of this infrastructure has been repurposed to take out populism. So every time you see communism, as much as all of us, abhor that, I think, with every fiber in our souls, the biggest threat right now to the intelligence state and to the blob we'll come to meet towards the end of this is domestic populism. And this is actually the language that they use. So when you see that say the communists would have won, many of us would prefer that, obviously, that the communist does not win. But today, they use that exact same language, as you'll see, to describe stopping the rise of populism and stopping populist political candidates. So I want to just go through this, since I didn't see a hand raised in this room, this key document that was the predecessor to the government linchpin license that created this whole universe. So we're just going to go through some of these receipts
I'll go ahead and read this this portion here, and then we'll move on. I encourage everybody to take the time to watch this for themselves and to give this gentleman, again, Mike Benz, a follow. Seems like this is something that we really should understand. And look, for a long time, I've known, and you guys have heard me pontificate If you've watched this show, if you watched Locked and Loaded Latinos previously, or have seen me on other, different Second Amendment or political podcasts, that I've always believed that the intelligence agencies have had major influence on our history, and they're the ones that are basically running the show right now. This is why we see so many politicians unable to do the right thing. It is because we know, and this has been leaked, from Congress, anonymously, and in some cases on the record, that many politicians have are being blackmailed by the CIA and the feds, and name your alphabet soup organization here. So this is why we see so many politicians, once they get into Washington, D.C., they seemingly become corrupted and become a part of the monster and the swamp. It's not necessarily because they're getting paid off. Obviously, some of them are greedy. Many of them are. But it's because they start playing ball, because they know that as soon as they get in there, they're probably presented, if they push back against the authoritarian regime and the intelligence state, then I'm sure somebody comes up to them with a manila folder, slides it across the table, and is like, all right, we got dirt on you. We know that you've got, if you're a politician, we know that you've cheated on your spouse, or that you've done drugs, or maybe you've got some things that you don't want people to see on your computer. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your spouse that's done these things. Maybe it's one of your kids. Maybe it's somebody in your extended family. It doesn't matter. So I'd be willing to bet that the politicians that completely flip and become swamp monsters when they get in, they're the ones that have dirt. The ones that are actually speaking out continually against this stuff are actually the pure ones that have nothing, that they don't have anything on, and they're the ones that they hate. And this is what makes Donald Trump such a powerful political figure. Because one, he can't be bought. He's got his own money. He's been a billionaire in his own right, even though he's lost nearly a third to almost half of his wealth since coming into office. This has cost him pretty dearly. His entire brand throughout the world has been destroyed because of the hate campaign pushed by the media and by the political left. And, we already see that we know everything about him. We know that he's said dumb things in the past. We know that he's cheated on multiple spouses. It's all out there in the open. So really, they only try to get him on things that are either BS, like the Russian dossier, the quid pro quo phone call that led to the second impeachment with the Ukrainian president. And now we see all these ridiculous cases, most of which have been thrown out, and others that are just completely egregious, that now we're seeing the sentencing until conveniently after the election, which tells you a lot about their legitimacy. It calls all that into question, because they really have nothing on this guy, because everybody knows everything about Trump. We know that Trump historically has been a bit of an ass. Like, that's just how he is. And that's what makes him appealing to a lot of people, because he stands up to all this BS. But it's out there. It's out there. So they can't influence him the way they can other politicians. And like I said before, I think he did not even realize what he was stumbling upon here. But he's taken the brunt of it, and he has risen to the occasion, especially in the midst of attempts on his life. So that's why they go after him. It's because what he represents. He's become a figure that transcends politics. Now, he's not any sort of messiah figure or anything like that. As far as I'm concerned, the only man that can save us died on the cross 2,000 years ago, and he's the one that we have to pray to if we want all this to work out. But Donald Trump in the political space is the one that we need right now, because he's really the only one that's going to be able to expose this. I don't know what he's going to be able to do in the next 4 years. He's not going to be able to reverse all of this stuff. It is too embedded. But what he can do, and what they're most afraid of, is that he can start dismantling it, and with the young blood that he's bringing in, they can start exposing it. And I personally think that that's what Donald Trump needs to do. I think he needs to get in here and basically say, I'm going to have Elon, JD, Vivek, Tulsi, and RFK Jr. basically run wild here in Washington and start exposing stuff and start having press conferences where we just let it all out. We're going to tell you everything. We're going to let America's dirty laundry come out to the forefront. They're not going to be able to stop us. And if they take any of us out, you'll know what's going on. And then that's it. They will expose themselves and we will see what happens. I'm sure there will be false flag operations. I think that's why we have this congressional contingency here, because I really wouldn't put it past the intelligence state to do something to itself in order to install people that may be more amenable to it, or to try to galvanize the American people and try to unite us against some sort of right-wing boogeyman or a foreign adversary to try to, get us to forget everything that we're seeing about them and what has been exposed over the last few years. So if you hear about nuclear strikes from Russia, terrorist attacks from Iran and all this stuff, I think it's all BS. I think it's all absolute BS. They want World War III because they want to give us some sort of, in the past, this country has used war to try to unite this country. In some cases, it has been justified. In other cases, it's probably been a sham. I mean, you go between World War II, justified conflict, to the Vietnam War, total hoax with the Gulf of Tonkin, and there you go. You've got two big contrasts here. I'm personally not convinced that, I'm not a 9/11 truther, but if you were to tell me that the intelligence agencies knew, which many of us know that Mossad warned our government that something big was going to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if we just decided not to prevent September 11th in order to push the military-industrial complex and give an excuse to run rampant through the Middle East. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Al-Qaeda is definitely responsible for it, but sometimes you just sit back and you let your enemies do things to try to galvanize things. It brought the American people together under patriotism, and we got a lot of authoritarian laws pushed after that, like the Patriot Act, and a lot of people got rich, like the defense contractors and construction companies rebuilding countries that we went into to try to spread democracy in and bomb and rebuild afterwards. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by any of that. And when you hear all of this, it's all going to be called into question, because he goes on to explain that the State Department is the one that's actually has the marching orders for the intelligence state. So it makes you wonder about Benghazi. It makes you wonder about the war in Libya, about how influential Hillary Clinton and powerful she was in as being the Secretary of State, and why that position in particular was given to her. So it really makes you call into question everything, which is a terrible position to be in. And, I don't want people to be black-pilled. Hopefully this red pills people. We do have hope, because the fact of the matter is this is all out in the open and they can't do anything. Pandora's box has been smashed on the floor, and there's no putting it back together. This is it. This is it all in the open. So now you're seeing the flailing desperation and the attempted discrediting of a political movement, not just a political candidate, but an entire movement and an entire swath of the population, because they can see that the power is slipping from their grasp and they're being exposed. And I wouldn't doubt that some of this that we've seen in the past has been exposed on purpose. QAnon was definitely a psyop. There's no doubt. There were some things in QAnon that were probably very credible, but there was just enough to make people believe in it to try to get a portion of the right to out themselves, so that then the intelligence agencies could slam the door shut with really crazy conspiracy theories that are definitely not true, and discredit an entire group of people, and to basically discredit the right and make us look like a bunch of loonies, because they knew that people were getting close to exposing this stuff. So they have to admit to some of it so that there's credibility there. You can look up evidence, but then you smokescreen with a bunch of disinformation to basically discredit the movement. And this is what the intelligence agencies do. The Russians have a name for this. I forgot what it is. But was it Mostorovska or something like that? It was developed by the KGB. It's like misdirection. You allow some kernels of truth to go out there, maybe even most of the truth to go out there, but then you throw in enough lies to make the rest of that discredited. You see this in the UFO community a lot too, where, you know, the government's covering up UFOs and what they are, and they may give us enough information so you can be like, oh yeah, this is real. And you know, it's been ironic that we've been seeing a lot more UFO evidence come out. Again, that's part of the misdirection campaign. It's a distraction, even if it's true, you know, which I believe a lot of that stuff is actually. You just throw enough out there, and then you throw in some other crazy stuff that's definitely not true to basically prevent any sort of credibility from experts. So you try to capture some people of prominence, and then you shatter them with the disinformation. So let's read this top secret document. You know, I've gone on a tangent. It's what I do here. The problem: the inauguration of organized political warfare. Analysis. First, political warfare is the logical application of Clausewitz's doctrine in time of peace. In broadcast definition, political warfare is the employment of all the means at a nation's command, short of war, to achieve its national objectives, to further its influence and authority, and to influence those of its adversaries. Such operations are both overt and covert. They range from such overt actions as political alliance economic measures as ERP and quote-unquote white propaganda, to such covert operations as clandestine support of friendly foreign elements, black psychological warfare, and even encouragement of underground resistance in hostile states. Very interesting. Funding insurgent movements and things like that. Interesting. Where have we seen that before? We've seen that a lot in the Middle East, huh? It's interesting that, you know, when after Libya fell, and you know, it's interesting that ISIS got a lot of American weapons during the Obama administration. It's interesting that we withdrew from Afghanistan and left billions of dollars of equipment out on the battlefield that Al Qaeda has now. I mean, that the Taliban have now. Interesting. I wonder if that's by design. I wonder if like $60 billion is missing from Ukraine, that Vladimir Zelensky himself said was missing, and then we're seeing the Palestinians and Hamas, a lot of these other organizations, they have American weapons and M4s and things. I wonder where could that have come from? I don't know. I really don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that a lot of the ballistic missiles that were shot down, that the Iranians shot at Israel, contained mostly components from Western countries, even though there's blockades and things like that, and they shouldn't be able to get that stuff, right? Like, it's really weird. I mean, I don't know. It's very strange. It is very strange, and I think we're at the point, you know, for years, a lot of people, especially people on the right, love to use the argument, blame not on malice what can be blamed on stupidity. I forgot what that is. It's Occam's razor or Hanlon's razor. Let's bring it up. My ADD is getting the best of me. I believe that's what it is. There we go. Yeah, it's blame, never a Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. I think we're beyond that point at this point. It's all nefarious. We know this. He goes on here to explain the Smith-Mundt Act, which essentially came to be in 1948 around this time, which was like, wow, look, we're coming up with this entire intelligence influence apparatus to affect and influence not only our allies, but our adversaries overseas. But we got to make sure this is pretty powerful, that this can't be used against the American people. But interesting that during the Obama administration, the Smith-Mundt Act was modernized in 2012. And, it really is interesting that it was modernized. And now, Radio Free America, all these news organizations, things that, like NPR, that now some of that information that we have used overseas, the Smith-Mundt Act has been modernized. And now some of that information can now be seen by American audiences. I wonder why that is. Could it be that they're trying to use some of that, those influence campaigns against the American people themselves? Interesting that it would have happened during the Obama administration too. I wonder, could it just be like they just got tired of it and they saw how effective it was overseas and they're like, you know what? We got to bring this back to the States, baby. We got to influence the American people and use propaganda against them. We got to tell the social media companies that, we're not circumventing free speech, right? Even Zuckerberg came out a few weeks ago and was like, we got pushed by the feds to not allow certain things, and we couldn't push the Hunter Biden laptop because that would have been really bad, right? That would have been really bad. So, it's very interesting how all this stuff works, isn't it? It really is fracking interesting how all this stuff works, and that we're portrayed as being crazy when we've been seeing it all along, right? We have been seeing it all along, and it is obvious. And this is why I get back to the point here that they are desperate for everything. They are absolutely desperate to change everything here and to gain more and more power, because as he goes on to explain here, there are two halves of America, and that is the country of mainland. There's the mainland United States that we all live in, that we're citizens of, that we're fighting for. And then there is the American empire. And I am now convinced more than ever, especially after hearing this lecture, which again, I encourage you all to do. The link is there. I'm going to pin it right there in the comments section. I'm going to send it here in Rumble as well. For my Rumble viewers, we got a few people over there. Thank you, Rumble. You guys are awesome. We got people watching on Twitter. We're retweeting this as well, so you guys can see it all. It almost seems as if the president of the United States is usually a puppet controlled by the bureaucracy, and they're in charge of kind of the domestic affairs. And the Secretary of State seems to run everything that's going on with the American empire and the State Department. And we know that so much of the State Department is unelected bureaucrats and officials anyway. So it just keeps a perpetual intelligence apparatus of unelected officials that are influencing everything. And what the populist movement does is most raw materials, most businesses now have been offshored in the United States, and less capital flows from the mainland United States, and most of it comes from our quote-unquote empire of influence throughout the rest of the world. Our raw materials, our businesses, everything else. Our entertainment is exported at this point, and you see movies do better overseas than they do domestically. So we, the American people, we're just not providing enough cash anymore. We're not providing enough cash for these people. So we're just a pain in the butt. We're just sitting at home and we're complaining about all of this stuff. And the empire is like, yeah, we're getting really tired of people in the Capitol. Like, these people just want too much. We got to do something about this. So let's eliminate the people in the Capitol. Let's bring in all these illegal migrants, take away their jobs. Let's implode the economy here, because we control the rest of the world already anyway. So we don't really need the American mainland. We don't need these people. They're just a pain in the ass. That's all they are. There we go. I cursed. I apologize. That's it. We are a pain in the butt for these people, and they're sick and tired of us. And it is there for all of us to see. And that is why, seeing what is going on here, what we saw happen with Jeffrey Epstein, I think now it's pretty obvious what Jeffrey Epstein was. Jeffrey Epstein was one of these elements of the intelligence state apparatus to try to control politicians and celebrities and make sure that they played ball. You give this random guy who really had nothing. Who the hell was Jeffrey Epstein before any of this stuff? He was basically a nobody. You bring this guy in, you give him hundreds of millions of dollars, you give him an island, and you set it up with a bunch of children that you're exploiting, and you bring in elites and you blackmail them, and you film them while you do it. And then when he starts getting exposed by actual journalists, because if the media in this country, the Miami Herald started uncovering this stuff back in the day, if the journalists in this country actually did their job, the intelligence state would never be able to get away with anything. This is why they hate independent media. This is why they hate Elon Musk, because we can't be controlled. He can't be controlled, especially. Guys like Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and the like really cannot be controlled, whether you like some of these people or not. Eric July can't be controlled. Insert anyone here. Nerdrotta can't be controlled in the entertainment space. They don't like any of us because we can't be bought or controlled, and we are exposing the narrative on each level, whether it is culture, politics, finance, name it all. There are influencers and independent minds that are there that they cannot stop. And they really, really hate it. They absolutely hate it. They hate that we're platformed and that we can go out here and talk about this stuff, because there are too many of us to deal with. And now you're getting to the point where a guy like Mike Benz knows it. He's out there and he's able to expose it. Even if they take him down now, he's already let the cat out of the bag. So this is a serious problem for them, and that's why you're seeing the desperation. But going back to Epstein, this is why Epstein didn't kill himself, right? We know he was about to get exposed. He had the client list. He had the influence apparatus campaign right there. So he had to be dealt with. He had to be dealt with. And Ghislaine Maxwell got a sweet deal. Yeah, she's in prison, but she's in a nice, cushy prison. They'll probably try to wait for this all to blow over, and she'll be let out, and then she'll have a car accident once she gets out of jail one day. Nobody will remember, because they'll just memory hole everything. And by that time, if we don't have a President Trump, we'll live in a society that's going to be just like the things that Orwell talked about in 1984, where we've always been at war with. we've always been at war with East Asia. What are you talking about? Yeah, I mean, look at the newspaper, man. It says it right there. Like, you go on Wikipedia, it'll change it. You'll see movies on Amazon, Netflix, all this stuff changed on Disney Plus. The censorship will be rampant. And then, maybe they'll come up with some sort of war where conveniently only certain people get drafted and they get sent into the meat grinder, and the undesirables are, sent out there. But now I'm getting really conspiratorial and cynical here. So I'm not about to go there. This is why I've been avoiding these rants, because I'm going to go all over there. But at this point, am I really going that far? Am I really saying anything that is out of the realm of possibility at this point? I don't know. I really don't know. It doesn't seem to be. It really doesn't seem to be. And now it looks like Diddy's the next one on the list. And look, Diddy is a piece of human garbage. He really is. I think we can all agree on this right now. He really is. The things that he did here are heinous, and we know that a lot of them are true. They were recorded. You can see a lot of celebrities coming out, and we can see how this is going. But hey, let's read about this. And hey, what do you guys think the over/under is on Diddy making it, past a few weeks in prison? I think the chances are pretty low. But let's go ahead and read this. We'll close out with this one, and we'll finish up. I think this is pretty good. So hit that like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let people know that Rolo's Rants they'll be back. I don't know. I haven't decided yet how they'll be, but stay tuned. And I think we'll do it on this channel. I'll probably use the Rolo's Rants channel for little daily tidbits like I was doing before, videos less than 10 minutes long, some Second Amendment content. And I've got something else cooked up here because I've been doing a lot of crazy stuff outdoors and I've been filming a lot of it. So there may be there may be something totally different coming from Rolo, maybe roaming with Rolo, because I do a lot of I've been doing a lot of cool stuff. And if the world doesn't end after November, I'm going to be going on a lot of excursions, doing camping, kayaking, all that stuff. It's my passion. This is why you're not seeing that many gaming streams right now, because I'm getting out and touching grass, ladies and gentlemen, and I really enjoy it. So, because I'm trying to maintain my sanity in the midst of all this crazy stuff. So, let's finish up with this article right here. Diddy's bodyguard, this is from the Daily Mail. Diddy's bodyguard says that there are tapes of politicians at freak-offs and claims the rapper learned from other music moguls. We know that these Hollywood people love to throw some crazy parties. Sean Diddy Combs' former bodyguard revealed the disgraced rap mogul kept tapes of politicians taking part in his infamous freak-off sessions and claimed his arrest is tied to an alleged corruption scandal currently gripping New York City politics. Gene Deal, a former insider who protected Diddy through the 1990s, told the Art of the Dialogue podcast that the producer's indictment could expose high-profile officials and celebrities in the Big Apple. This is all bigger than Diddy, he said, without naming who the alleged tapes are of. He spoke out in the days after Diddy was indicted in New York and charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution, as he now faces the prospect of decades behind bars. The charges against Diddy came 6 months after his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami were raided by federal agents, where officers said they found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant allegedly used in the freak-off sessions. The freak-offs would see Diddy ply women with drugs before coercing them into marathon sexual performances with male prostitutes, according to prosecutors. Oh, geez. A speculation has fallen on alleged tapes of these sessions. However, prosecutors have not commented on them being filmed. Asked if there are any celebrities on alleged freak-off tapes, Deal responded, Diddy gave celebrity parties, so what do you think? Deal said that while the raid specifically targeted Diddy's properties, the arrests were part of something that is bigger than Diddy. He noted that despite allegations of criminal wrongdoing in lawsuits, including one brought by Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, prosecutors in California did not bring charges. Instead, the charges were brought in New York, which Deal said he believes is linked to a slate of resignations and allegations of corruption among Big Apple officials. People aren't going to tie this together. The bodyguard implied that Diddy himself was victimized early in his career by other powerful music videos, and he said he blames the ones who trained him and taught him with the music business for Diddy's alleged crimes. Puff wasn't born a monster. He was made into a monster, he said. He was made into a monster because of what happened to him and because of the things he had to do. To keep it frank, he was doing to other people what was done to him. That's a learned behavior, end quote. He claimed they was heavy into drugs. They was heavy into beating women and doing things at that crazy stage that's going on to make him think he can get away with the same things that they was getting away with back then. I'm not going to say allegedly because I saw that for my own self, he added. Deal said Diddy's dramatic high-profile arrest was karma for a lot of the stuff that he did, including one allegation that he led rapper Biggie Smalls to his death. His karma was bound to catch up with him, he continued. So all the things that are going on right now, the learned behavior that he got from these people was not living spiritually correct. He went and transferred that and did that to people. Deal concluded that Diddy's arrest will go down as one of the greatest tragedies in hip-hop history alongside the infamous deaths of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. He brought it upon himself, Deal said. He knew that he was wrong and that he knew that he learned something that wasn't right. He knew that if something is wrong, you get help, and he didn't choose none of that. Well, oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, Cat Williams, it's true. He's been calling it out. A lot of people have been calling a lot of this stuff out. You know, a lot of people in Hollywood have been open about this. They've made jokes, and you can see the disgusting perversion that Hollywood has. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that clip of Justin Bieber, and basically, you know, and I'm tired of like female pedophiles getting off the hook with this because women are just as capable of being pedophiles and exploiting young men and women as men are. So, it's disgusting to see grown women grabbing Justin Bieber when he was underage and smacking him in the butt and everything like this. And I know that a lot of men love to joke around being with older women, but this is disgusting stuff. And this is depraved that we should not be pushing. So, I hope that this stuff comes out. I don't think a lot of it will. I think it'll be used to take out certain other people for that. And they'll try to bury this under the rug. But I think a lot of people know the truth, right? At this point, we know that a lot of these people are sick and depraved, and that they've been exploiting the system, and that they victimize and traffic children throughout the entire world for their own means, and that a lot of the things that they're pushing are being influenced by the spirit of the age. You guys should know what that is. It's essentially a dark and demonic influence. This is what human beings do. They've been doing it for thousands of years. This is the same story that we've been dealing with since the beginning of time, right? We live in a fallen world, and we're going to continue to see these things until there's judgment for everybody. But in the meantime, we've got to do something about it, right? Because there are still good people in this world trying to do the right thing, and the victims are typically innocent children or those that are helpless, and we cannot allow these elites to get away with this. And we know that it is all there, and this is why all this depravity is being pushed, because people in powerful positions are doing this stuff, and that is why they want to normalize the sexualization of children, why they want to push the trans issue, because they want to normalize and desensitize us to the things that they're doing, so that one day when it comes out into the open, everybody is just like, well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not that big of a deal. It is not a big deal. It's not something that we are going to be surprised by or ask for people's heads for. So they want to make sure that we become completely used to it. And part of the problem, and I think part of it is working, because at this point, so many people are basically like, yeah, we know these people do anything. Like, what are we going to do about it? We have to continue to fight. We cannot give up. And we have to expose these people at every turn. So do what you can. Try to influence others around you. Make sure that you get out to vote this November. Don't slack on this. Even if you think it's not going to make a difference, it very well may. And we have to get above not just the margin of error, but the margin of where they can do something to manipulate this. So we have to do what we can. They're going to continue coming after President Trump. They're going to continue trying to demonize people like myself and those that have a voice, people like you here in this audience that have a voice. They will try to keep pushing this stuff. And this has gotten to the point where now it is beyond, it is all political. There was always the saying that politics is downstream of culture. Now culture is politics now. This is where we're at. We have a collusion of politicians with the entertainment industry. It's no longer separated. And I think we do need to start focusing on the bigger picture instead of getting into these fights. And this is why I've kind of avoided all the entertainment stuff. This is why you won't see me on those types of shows anymore, really, because I've got bigger fish to fry at this point. As much as I love entertainment, as much as I love video games, and I hate what woke ideology has done to this, it has now moved beyond this point. It's not about entertainment anymore. It's not about being able to escape this stuff. There is no escape. There is no escaping any of this. We are in the fight. It is a political battle. It is a battle. It's a spiritual battle, and we need to move beyond just the things that we see every day. We will not be able to. We will not be allowed to live in our little silos. We will not be able to hide from any of this stuff. We have to get involved. We have to get engaged in our communities, in our politics, and there is no way around it. Because if they take over everything, then it won't matter. It won't matter because they will crush everything else underneath it. They will take away everything that you know and love, and they will prevent you from living the life that you want and take away all of your prosperity. And that is why I could no longer sit idly by and watch it happen. And I had to come back for a rant tonight. And again, I don't know how often I'm going to do these. A lot of this is just going to be beating the same dead horse over and over and over. So please make sure you share this. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll be back for the gaming streams because it's difficult to do all this stuff all the time because it really can dishearten you. So yes, we do have to have our breaks to have fun, especially we don't know the direction that this world is going to go in. So don't take for granted the times that you have with loved ones. Appreciate those that are around you. You know, those of you that have watched my streams recently. I mean, you know what I've been through, you know, in the last year. So you never know where life is going to take you. You never know how things can change. I'm very blessed on the path that I've gone down. You know, I may not hang out with the same people anymore. My life may have changed drastically, but I am happier than I've ever been because I have found my direction in life. And I have found myself. I've been born again. I've spent a lot more time with my family. I've met wonderful new people. I've reconnected with people in my life that I wish I'd never lost connections with. But I am back, and I feel like I am a better man because of the things that have happened to me. And I'm surrounding myself by great people that I could never imagine that I think are great influences in my life. And, you know, you never know what's going to happen. The old man Pistolero, he talked about, you know, his recent bout with prostate cancer, you know, and going through surgery and all that stuff. Thankfully, he's cancer free. And I love the support that those of you that have heard about this gave. I'm proud of him for sharing his story. It's something that I didn't want to talk about myself. But, you know, we're truly blessed that, you know, my father's here. You can see him on the streams every Thursday and Friday with me playing Fortnite. And I'm blessed that he's doing great. And you know, get yourselves checked, you know, when it comes to that stuff. You're never too young to check yourself. Make sure that you're healthy. Your health is all that you've got. Really, it's something that you do have control over. They're trying to take that away from us as well. But get yourself checked. Give to organizations that try to stop cancer and other terrible diseases that take people away too early. And, you know, don't be afraid to have faith. I know a lot of people don't like it, or they're afraid to talk about faith, or they think that it can lead to bad things. It really isn't that way. You know, find good groups of positive people that you can surround yourself with. That's why I read that verse from 1 Corinthians 15:33. You know, surround yourself with good people, and it'll lead to you know, to good things. Don't be deceived. And I will leave you with this one that I posted the other day, which is, let's see where it is. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. That's all I've got today, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck. God bless. Stay vigilant. Never give up. Trust your instincts, as Peppy Harris says. And you can catch me again this Thursday with Commander N and the Old Man. I want to give a shout out to Commander N too. Posted a tabletop show that he just started with some cast of characters that you guys have seen before, trying to take back Tolkien from the woke mob and push back against Rings of Power. So that should be a lot of fun. But you can catch us every Thursday and Friday here on the Puerto Rican Pistolero channel for Fortnite. I'm going to try to play Space Marine 2 at some point, and maybe Helldivers again, since it seems like it's made a resurgence, but I'm out doing a lot of other things. So I'll see you guys around. Good luck. God bless. And thanks for watching tonight. Take care, everybody.
Rants.